So these guides are available on the Explore page. If you just type in types of deserts or types of forest, you'll find that guide that's there. But let's go over each one. We're not going to go into too much detail. But first, you have stony deserts, best defined by a desert covered with gravel, pebbles, and stones. You'll notice that I've included all the stamps and textures that I use, so there's no confusion about how I was able to make this rock outcropping, arid land, and deserts with stones. You also have dry lake beds. These are flat desert areas where water evaporates, leaving salt or clay. We have cold deserts, deserts in cold climates with freezing temperatures. Remember, dry is the prerequisite, not hot. Okay, that's important. There's also coastal deserts. Those are along the coasts with reduced rainfall due to cold ocean currents. There's also badlands, rugged, eroded desert terrain with ridges and canyons. Think mesas. There's also sandy deserts. These are the ones that are probably the most generic that you see in a fantasy setting. They're a vast expanse of shifting sand dunes, which we used in the guide. There's also saline deserts, expansive, crusty, salt surfaces. And there's also rocky deserts, a desert with bare rock surfaces and minimal sand. Okay, let's also go over our forests, and we can decide which kind of desert we want to go through. We already did a sandy desert in our main example here. If you look carefully right here, you'll see there's a sandy desert here. Let's not make a sandy desert. Let's instead go with a different one. We could do, let's maybe do, might be more interesting if we did maybe a stony desert or maybe a rocky desert. Might be one of those. People can let me know in the chat if any of them sounds interesting to you. Let me know and we'll go with that. And it doesn't really matter if the only thing is that you probably wouldn't have a cold desert right next in a rain shadow, but it's okay if you do have, if you're going to break these kind of biomes logic, then you should always have lore to kind of explain it. It's kind of helpful to kind of do that. And you don't have to if you don't want to. This is a matter of opinion, okay? Oh, yeah, I like the Badlands idea. Also like the Rocky Desert. We'll let other people weigh in and we'll see if there's more than one. Yep. Oh, there's 2 Badlands. Sweet. One of the redder ones. Yep, that would also be Badlands. I like that. Cool. Awesome. Okay, well, it looks like Badlands is getting picked out here. And we can throw rocks in the Badlands as well, so we can throw it in. Let's go ahead and start with our desert first. People chose Badlands, so let's go ahead and do that. We're going to head and zoom in real close so you can kind of see what we're working on here. We chose our Badlands. Normally, when I'm making any kind of biome, I generally will put down the main color that I want to use. So someone mentioned red or orange, so let's just fill the entire thing with that. And we'll do texturing after we place down the stamps because it's hard to know where to blend what textures with what stamps without stamps being there. This is, of course, debatable. Some people put down textures first and then stamps. Purely, it is personal preference. So what I'll do is I'm going to place down some mesas. We have some mesas here. Oop, let's go ahead and turn off our area, by the way. Go back, area 0. There we go. Oopsie. Go back to 0. There we go. That's why you kind of saw that weird like that. And we're going to start with getting our scale properly. But I don't want it to be too small. I want it to be big enough to where you can kind of see what we're doing here. Now, something I've noticed about mesas is that they're pretty spaced out from each other. I've noticed in Badlands, they're not like a chain like a regular mountain range that you normally see. They're not chained together. They're generally isolated tabletops from each other. So when you place them, what I would recommend doing is start with big and then move your way to small. And the reason why is because the bigger the stamp, it fills up the space and then it gives you a positive and negative space that you can work with. So start with big first. Let's go a big one here, one right here. And when you're spacing them out, my recommendation is don't have them equidistant from each other. Have some of them be close to each other and have some of them be further away. Once you've chosen that, the big ones, then you'll go ahead to a medium-sized one. So then you'll bring the scale down a little bit more. And then you can put these medium-sized ones. Let's put one in a corner there. Let's put another one right here. And then maybe a smaller one right next to this one. There we go. All right. So now we have this. I'm going to overlap a little bit here like this, put these a little too close together. There we go. One right there looks good. That one's in a corner. Let's move that over to here. There we go. Again, I don't want them to be equidistant from each other. That doesn't look good. Okay, that looks good. I think that looks right. And then from here, we're going to put some cliffs down as well to kind of show that what happens a lot with biomes is they can look a little flat. The way that you resolve that are two things. One, cliffs, and two, contrast. To show lower elevations, use a darker variant of the ground texture. To show higher elevations, use lighter variants of the ground texture. This is important because contrast is how you're going to show depth. Let's start with cliffs first. We'll go ahead and type in cliff. You can also just type in terrain, and every terrain stamp will pop up. Let's go ahead and grab these cliffs. And when it comes to cliffs, what I'll do is I'll place them and line them up with the line work on the mesa. So if I place this cliff right here, I want to make sure that the line work of the cliff also lines up with the line work of the mesa. Super important to kind of do that. All right, and I'm going to go through the various stamps and see which ones look good. I think this kind of looks good. And what we want to do is maybe create this ravine or this more like a trench, a ravine, or a canyon of some kind so that way we can create this sense of depth. Because again, we want to fix that flat feeling that happens with a biome or with a map. Let's go ahead and connect one there. Let's keep connecting a bunch of them together. Let's maybe create one here that will create this more sense of depth. And we're just going to piece a bunch of these together until we get the desired look that we want. So we'll keep going here. Let's put another one right here. That looks good. Okay, let's also build another one. Let's go have the other side of one like this, like that. Piece it together so we see that the canyon's kind of coming in this way. And we're going to keep adding more and more stamps. Let's go and put this one right here. This will kind of continue on this kind of canyon effect that we're looking for. And we're just going to keep doing that until we kind of get enough cliffs, until we have definable higher elevations and lower elevations that we can then paint in to show contrast. So we'll go through these. It's also good to maybe just throw in a kind of this plateau rock or a little island rock. So I'll go ahead and place these together. I'm notorious for using these. So you can place this anywhere you want. Maybe it looks good here. Maybe it looks good here. Maybe right here. It really depends visually. I want to create a sense of more depth. So I'm going to do overlapping. By placing it behind this right here, it's going to create more depth. Remember, if you want to create this sense of depth, you have to overlap stamps. So you notice that mesa is in the front and that rocky island is in behind it, making this sense of depth. Okay, that's really important when you're putting these things together. Let's just continue adding a little bit more. Let's put another one. Let's see here. Let me move things. Let's try doing this one right here like this, just to kind of continue that shape. Let's put another one right here like this. And then we'll even kind of create a little part right here like this. There we go. It's just slowly kind of coming together. All right, let me just take a look at it. Let's go ahead and continue on that sense of depth by placing some over here. We're going to add just a couple more. Okay, let's go ahead and put this together. Hey, first time both of you first time chatters, welcome, by the way. All right, let's go ahead and add this. There we go. Okay, so I've kind of created some elevation here. Let's talk about how to create that depth. If you just take this exact same texture that you have right here and go over to tweak colors, simply bring the brightness down a little bit. And then now when I paint this texture down, you notice it's a little bit darker. Let's go ahead and switch our brushes up too. Let's switch over to our regular default brush. Remember, the trick is to do multiple strokes. So what we'll do is wherever I want to show a more lower elevation, I'm going to go ahead and paint in this area right here with a darker texture. Just like this, right? And to show more difference, I'll make sure to fill it all in like this. And then I'll do it again in the middle using that texture again, and then again. Let's go ahead and bring the opacity down, or the brightness down just a little bit more. There we go, just to get that extra sense of depth there. There we go. And now you can kind of see that you're kind of creating this sense of depth by using darker and light, using contrast to create the sense of depth. That's very helpful. You can also take in that same texture and just bring the brightness up like this. Get that, make sure it's up, and then you can just kind of paint the tops of these mesas right here with a brighter color to kind of show height, right? So we'll put a little bit of lighter color there, pops out. You can also apply that to what you feel are higher sections. So right here, this island might be a little higher up. This one might be a little higher up. This one's a little higher up, so bring the brightness up. Let's also just take a couple spots, just paint in a little bit of the brighter texture just to give it to kind of pop out more. And you see what contrasts do, right? They cause contrast and then this sense of depth. So it's always important to kind of put that together. You can also change things up too. Maybe you don't like the brown of the cliff. You can always just select all from the set. You can change that blend mode to luminosity so it all has that orangish color if you feel it fits in better. I personally like the brown, but you can always change things up. So that's kind of important. The other thing that we should put in here is there's still a lot of negative space here that seems like it's incomplete. Like there's no overlay textures to try to blend these mesas or cliffs in. So why don't we do that? Remember I mentioned, let's do two things. Let's add rock and then we'll add that gravel overlay. So we'll go into here. We're going to type in terrain. It's already here. Great. And there should be these rocks in here called rock outcroppings. We'll go and do that. They are a grayish color. I don't think that's going to work here. So why don't we instead change the blend mode to luminosity here? There we go, just like this. And what I'll do is I'm just going to place a couple at the base of these mesas. And the reason why is because I want to create some transition between the ground texture and the mesa stamps. And right now they kind of stick out a little bit, and I'll show you how to fix that. Let's put some there, one right here. Okay, that's good. One there, there. I'm just going to keep placing a bunch of them. Let's put one there and put one here. Okay, that looks good. Okay. And then I'm going to go ahead and select all from this set. And then what you're going to do is you're going to go to tweak colors and just bump that contrast down. There we go. And now those won't be quite as popped out as much. We'll bring the brightness up. And now those rocks seem to blend in a little better, as you noticed with the ground. So they're not popping out too much. Remember that problem that deserts have. If they're contrasting too much, they're going to pop out, really going to stick out like a sore thumb. So you have to be careful. And then after that, we can go and throw in our overlay of our gravel. Remember, again, you do have to change that scale. And then I'm just going to place that gravel just wherever I see a mesa or those rocks. I'll just go ahead and place that little bit of rock there. And then when we take a step back and kind of look at it, you notice that there's a little bit more intention. It doesn't seem quite as completely empty with these different types of rocks and that gravel there. Kind of important to kind of remember that. Let's go ahead and just take a step back and look at it. Yeah, I kind of like this. Looks good. All right, there are some things that we can also do. If you want to add more, we can type in this cracked. There is this cracked ice texture. Let me take a look. I think it's ice. Let me double check. Nope. Let me type in overlay. Here we go. There it is. We've got grass patches. Let's go ahead and go show names so that way I can kind of see what I'm working at with here. I don't see it in there. So let's go over to Parchment World. Let those overlay popped up. Cracked ground. There it is right there. This will work great. Let's make sure the scale is correct. And then underneath where you see these mesas right here, you can create further transition by just adding in this kind of cracked ground texture. Remember, it's kind of badland a little bit. So you would expect some cracking of the ground because it's dry. There's not a lot of water. And so this cracked ground will act as a great way of kind of giving a little bit more intention. So I'm going to place this all around. Remember, the trick to desert is dry, and cracked ground is going to show that quite a bit because there's no water. That's why the ground is cracking. There we go. And you notice that just adding in those couple overlay textures has quite a difference on your map, right? Now you don't have this open space here that doesn't look like it's incomplete because you've added in those overlay textures. Those are kind of important. There's one last thing that we can do to this biome, which might make it more interesting, and that is that we can throw in a light source. There are no light sources in the fantasy world style, but there totally is in fantasy battle maps. And we're going to go ahead and type in light. And you could use layers for this. You can use stamps. There's a lot of different ways you can go about lighting. But when it comes to the simplest one, without having to change up layers and do all these things, just a simple light source right on the map like this can actually do a lot for your map, right? So if you go and place a little light source, it could be in this open part of the canyon right here. It could be up against here, just a little bit, just like that. And you'll be surprised what just a little bit of light can do for your map. There we go. We'll go and place the light source just right there, just like that. And you'll see how much of a difference that plays on your map, right? No longer does that biome look quite as flat now that you've added in that light source. And there's a lot more that you can do, but you get the general idea about the desert. We followed those techniques. Remember, we tried not to make it too visually dense. We tried to give meaning to things. The only other thing that we could probably do on this biome is add in some point of interest. And it's going to be important because remember, this POI is going to stand out among the other stamps. So we have to be very careful about where we place it. And when it comes to deserts of any kind, what I find to be most helpful is a couple things here. One, if it's a sandy desert, it might be best to place it tucked in between two dunes. If it's a wasteland like this, then what might be more helpful is to put something on top of those mesas. A mesa means table. It's flat at the top, right? That's perfect for some kind of POI, right? Whether it's orcs or whatever you want it to be. In fact, let's do that. Let's go add in a orc POI just right on top of one of these mesas. Let's pick something that's going to be interesting. Let's maybe choose an orc city of some kind. That might be too big for that mesa. There's also this tower right here. We could do that. Place that tower just right on top like this. Maybe we can put one little building right next to it. Maybe just place it just right there like that. There we go. Go and rotate it and we'll move it. And you can see, now you can tell that that structure pops out so much, but it's also where the light source is. It's also right on top of a mesa. It's got a defensible position and it has intention, right? So remember, when you add a POI to a desert, you have to keep in mind that it has to be intentional. Random locations will not help you. You have to have a lot of intention when you're thinking about where to place any kind of POI in any kind of desert because of that negative and positive space problem that comes up. So kind of keep that in mind.